Hello and welcome to another episode of the DVD Graveyard. Tonight we're going to be taking a look at Basket Case 2 from 1990, directed once again by Frank Henenlotter. Now, I just want to start off by saying that when I first saw this movie, I was not prepared for what this movie is all about and what this movie's got going on, okay? So, just like I talked about in my first Basket Case review, that movie has a very early 80s grindhouse, kind of underground, sleazy, gritty kind of feel to it. And I mean, you almost kind of have a certain sort of, I guess, expectation, whenever you hear about a sequel to that movie, or at least I did. I kind of, thought I was going to see something, a little bit more along the lines of that. But this movie completely changes in tone, in environment. I mean, everything about this movie is completely different, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in a big positive, because this movie really does kind of stand on its own. And to be honest with you, like, as much as I love the first movie, I think I might prefer Basket Case 2 a little bit more, just because it's so just ridiculous. I mean, it's insane. I've been looking forward to talking about this movie for some time, and I just picked up the Blu-ray from Synopsis Films not too long ago, and as soon as I got it and sat down to watch it again, I was like, okay, we're gonna we're gonna talk about this soon. So like I said, this movie came out in 1990, so it's like 8 years after the first film. And the first film, like I mentioned, had a super low budget. I mean, they were scrounging. They were getting stuff out of the garbage to use as props. Everything was just very, very low budget. I think the budget, if I remember correctly, was $35,000 is what they spent on that movie, which, again, is nothing. That's like pocket change, when you're talking about, funding a film. But it went on to be, restored and everything by the Museum of Modern Art, and has since become a huge kind of cult classic. This movie, again, in 1990, so 8 years later, this movie by the same director, of course, would be done for $2.5 million. So, I mean, it had a much, much larger budget, and it really shows. This movie, again, compared to the first one, is a lot sleeker. It feels a lot, you can feel the injection of finances in this movie. Like, it definitely feels a lot more produced. It works for this movie, and it works for the plot that they're trying to tell with this movie. I don't think that this plot that is going on in this film could have been done kind of in the same vein as the first movie. And it almost kind of feels like this is just something I wanted to mention really quick, but this one almost has like a full moon type feel to me personally. Like that's the vibe I got from it. Like when I first watched it, it really had that kind of silly, early 90s, almost, again, full moon type feel to it, because it's very just like, I don't know. I really don't know how to explain it, but it's just they ramp up on the comedy again. Everything is just working so well, and just this whole movie is just fucking insane, and I'm looking forward to talking about it. So before I get too far into this, also, I don't want to spoil this movie for anyone who has not seen it. So if you have not seen this movie, go watch it before, because I don't want to ruin it, because again, I think that this is the best way to see this, especially if you've seen the first one and you go straight into the second one. It's very kind of jarring, kind of in a good way, because you're like, oh shit, this is fucking wild. Like, what the hell am I watching? So again, if you have not seen this, I highly recommend going and checking this out. They're all streaming on Tubi, I believe, the first one, second one, and the third one. But before I get into the actual review, as usual, I'm going to read the plot synopsis off the back of this Synopsis Films Blu-ray, which is actually a really nice Blu-ray release. The film looks really good on this Blu-ray. Everything, it's a very, very nice transfer. It doesn't have a whole lot of special features, not compared to the first one that the Arrow release had. It was a really nice transfer from the 35mm camera negative, and then of course there's two little like interviews on this, and so, like I think there's an interview and then like a behind the scenes featurette with Gabe Bartalos, who does a lot of the makeup effects in this film, which is probably why they're so fantastic. Gabe Bartalos is great. Dwayne Bradley and his surgically separated twin brother Belial return in this frightfully gory follow-up to Frank Henenlotter's original monster movie classic, Basket Case. After surviving a fall from a hospital window, the two brothers become media targets. Dwayne's aunt Granny Ruth, played by world-famous jazz singer Annie Ross, whisks the duo away to a secluded mansion where the other freaks in hiding live out their days away from the public scrutiny. When a snooping tabloid reporter finds the location of the mutants, Dwayne and his new family must stand together to keep his freedom a secret, and in all the chaos, Belial might actually find true love. So that's interesting that they actually said that there's a couple things on this on the back of this plot synopsis that are kind of odd. Like, so they're not with Dwayne's aunt. They're with another woman who knew Dwayne's aunt, or who had spoken to Dwayne's aunt previously, and knew about him. So I thought that was really interesting. And then, of course, he doesn't really fall out of a hospital window. They're kind of referring to the end of the first movie whenever he falls out of the hotel window. So this movie is also great because a lot of the cast kind of returns for I mean, not a whole lot of the cast, but I mean, a few of them kind of come up in minor roles. So, of course, Kevin Van Hentenryck comes back to play Dwayne. Annie Ross plays Granny Ruth, who is she's kind of the main sort of one of the main people in this movie, even more than Dwayne. Like, she gets a lot more kind of screen time, even compared to Dwayne. Of course, there's Heather Rattray, who plays Susan. She's kind of this girl that lives with Granny Ruth. Ted Sorrell is in this movie in a very kind of small role. I was really happy to see him. He was in the film From Beyond. And then Catherine Meisel, I think is how you say her name. She plays Marcy. She's kind of this reporter. And like I said, even Beverly Bonner comes back, who played Casey in the first movie. She comes back in a very small kind of little cameo role. So it was really just fun to see her, because like I said, this movie, it has a really nice tight continuity, keeping up with the first film, and the kind of the events that took place in the first film. So when this movie starts out, we get a little bit of a recap from the first movie, kind of the ending of what happened with Belial and Dwayne falling out the window, and basically after they fall out, a crowd gathers around. There's news people, all around, and they are taken to the hospital, and this story kind of becomes like national news, and it's playing on the news, and they're talking about the Bradley brothers. Their secret is out now, that Dwayne Bradley's been living in this place, and they've been killing the doctors that separated them, whenever they were much younger. So, that's kind of, it gives us sort of a recap of this, which, like I said, if you could actually probably go straight into this one, which I like because this movie kind of stands a little bit on its own, from the first movie. Like, you could watch it and get kind of all the information that you needed to kind of go with this movie. So during all of this, Granny Ruth, that's when we meet her and Susan, they are watching the news, and they see Dwayne and Belial, have been taken to this hospital on the news, and they decide to go break them out of this hospital. And of course, Dwayne wakes up, and he's still psychically linked to Belial, and Belial, I guess, tells him to, he either tells him or he is in control of Dwayne, because there are moments, I even forgot to mention in the first movie, where Belial is more or less in control of Dwayne's body. So they leave the hospital, and Granny Ruth comes to pick them up and takes them back to her house, which is this beautiful old house, and she brings them in, and she introduces them to the rest of her family. And basically what Granny Ruth does in this house, she houses these like mutated people, like Belial, these deformed people, and they're her children, I guess, and she's got them from various places and so on and so forth, and they all have various deformities, but we are introduced, she introduces Belial to all of these, and I just want to say that all of these creature effects are fantastic. They're so creepy looking, and just I mean, some of them just really kind of make your skin crawl. But that's one thing that this movie plays into, is because Granny Ruth is so sweet to all of them, and she cares for all of them, again, just like they are her children. And she is more or less kind of in the same role that Dwayne and Belial's aunt played in the first film. In that little flashback sequence where the aunt actually saw them as both people instead of Belial being a monster and Dwayne being just a boy. She accepts all of these people and their deformities for what they are. So we meet several of them. There's one that has it's just a giant head. There's one that's got giant teeth that kind of hang. It's so creepy looking, and they're not malicious. I mean, they're all, being fairly kind, in this environment, and they all have their kind of their little community that they have. But they just look great. I mean, all of them look fantastic. And among all of these is even one that is much like Belial, which kind of comes into play later, named Eve. Now, we don't see much of Eve, but she is very much in the same vein as Belial. She's just this kind of more or less pile of flesh with a couple of limbs and a human face. So, like I said, that kind of comes up a little bit later and in the sequel as well. And so they basically, Dwayne and Belial kind of live in this house, and they start to kind of just, kind of make their way and go about things. Dwayne kind of it doesn't really feel like he fits in very well, and he wants to leave. He wants to go out and have a normal life now that Belial is kind of at home. And, much like the first movie, like I said, if you really dig into it and you want to, pull some, heavier themes out of that movie, this movie you could do the same thing with, which would be like, accepting people for their flaws and things like that. You can really pull that from this movie if you so choose, and if you want to, and not look at it as an early '90s, horror comedy monster film, just on surface level, that's what it is. But anyway, so as we kind of go on, this reporter kind of, she keeps, she's being very nosy, Marcy, the Marcy character, and she is basically just convinced that Granny Ruth, because she has this reputation of housing these mutated people, these freaks as they all call them, that she houses all of these people. They're thinking that Belial is there, and she's kind of hot on the trail. And kind of as we keep going on, there's not really a whole lot that goes on. There's not a lot of kills compared to the first movie. This one is not nearly as gory or violent as the first movie, but it kind of makes up for that just in the effects and kind of the content. And there's just this kind of wacky vibe to this whole movie. Like it just has a really strange kind of weird feel to it. Like this whole movie's just odd. Like, I mean, that's the best way I can describe it. It's just this. It's crazy. And like I said, these makeup effects on all of these creatures just look fantastic. And I mean that kind of sells it. So. Basically, as we kind of go on, this reporter finds out that Dwayne is staying at this house, where Granny Ruth lives, and she's kind of been harassing Granny Ruth, and she knows if Dwayne is there, Belial has to be there, so she. Kind of enlists the help of this other guy who like works with her at this newspaper or whatever they work for exactly, and they decide to go back because they're going to get pictures of Dwayne and Belial there so they can report it to the police and make a big story out of it and everything. Granny Ruth knows that this is going to happen. She knows that the reporter is going to come and try to break down basically everything that she's built and separate the family and all of this kind of stuff. So she kind of says that they can either run and hide or they can fight, and this is where the family decides to fight back. So when this reporter comes back, she brings this other guy with her who's like, I'll sneak into the house and I'll get pictures of Dwayne and Belial. And so he sneaks in there, and Dwayne is kind of talking, and Dwayne leaves, and the guy goes up into the attic. And this movie, like I said, is very very comedic. It leans very heavy into the dark comedy, but there are a couple scenes in this movie that genuinely unsettle me, and this is one of those scenes where the guy climbs up the ladder into the attic, and it's pitch black up there, and he's wanting to get a picture of Belial, and it's completely dark, and he takes a picture with this camera that has this really bright flash on it, and when the flash comes up, we see all of the creatures, and it's so creepy, just the way that they're kind of lurking in the dark, and I mean, I would have had a heart attack and died, like if I had seen that, like on the spot, like if that happened to me, that would have just killed me right then and there. So that scene truly kind of unsettles me a little bit, and of course, they end up killing him. Belial attacks him, and then the rest of the family kind of kill him, and then of course the reporter leaves, and she goes and asks for the assistance of Phil, which is Ted Sorrell's character, to kind of talk to Dwayne, like they're wanting to speak with him, and so when they this is another one of those scenes, like I said, that really kind of unnerves me and makes me, kind of uncomfortable a little bit. They go to this bar, and basically while they're in the bar, they're kind of sitting down to have a beer, and he's asking Dwayne questions about Belial, and Dwayne goes on this long spiel because he's kind of starting to accept the mutants and stuff like that. He's accepting it a little bit more, and he basically tells him, he's like, in a room full of freaks, or a house full of freaks, he's like, we would be the freaks, we're not the normal ones in an environment like that. Much like it says, in a sane world, an insane man must seem mad, or vice versa, whatever. You got it. I screwed up the quote, but you get what I'm saying. Anyway, in an insane world, a sane man must appear mad. Yeah, that. So, anyway, they, after this, Dwayne stands up and he asks, he's like, who in here thinks that we're normal? And we realize that everyone in the bar are these mutants, these creatures, Granny Ruth's children. And so they're all just kind of wearing these face masks, and they all take them off, and it's revealed that it's all these creatures in here. And the guy gets really, really uncomfortable. And again, it just has this eerie vibe to it. I mean, this whole scene, they're just all kind of like, they're all just staring at him, and he realizes he's surrounded by all of these people, and he gets really uncomfortable. And again, it makes me very uncomfortable. It's a very eerie scene, just the whole vibe to this whole situation. And of course, he is killed by Belial. And it's not, again, like I said, the first movie, it's not nearly as gory as the first movie or violent as the first film. But we get just enough, I mean, it does fine, for what we do get. So he is killed. And then, last but not least, they have to kill off Marcy. And again, situation number 3 that makes me very uncomfortable is when she's in the house alone, and Dwayne kind of breaks into her house. And he's like, I know you wanted to interview with me and Belial. And he's like, says something about, all of his friends are here. And she's like, what do you mean? And then all of the mutants kind of slowly start to come into the house, one by one. Like, some of them are hiding in her shower. One of them's climbing through the window. And she's just getting really uncomfortable. And she grabs this knife, and she's kind of, backed into a corner by all of these creatures, and then she's attacked by Belial in probably what I think is the most violent kill in the whole movie. Is her face gets all twisted and mangled, and it's such a cool looking effect. And then of course Dwayne is like, you're one of the freaks now, or something like that is what he says. So she's killed. And they've kind of gotten their revenge. So I mean, the plot kind of plays out similar to the first movie. It's just kind of a revenge movie. Like they're killing these people who are doing them wrong. Again, much like the first movie where they were killing the doctors who separated them. That's kind of a running theme through this movie, through these movies, I should say. So after it's all said and done, all of the family is having this barbecue, at their house, and it's so friggin' goofy and silly. Like, they're all just sitting around this table eating hot dogs and hamburgers, and there's a frog guy there who's eating these goldfish out of a glass, and it's so wacky and so goofy, but also eerie at the same time. Like, again, it's just something about it just gives me the creeps. But they're all sitting there, and, Belial is upstairs with Eve, and they start to have there is a very, extended monster sex scene in this movie, which is really wacky. Again, that will play into the sequel just fine. The next one we'll kind of see what comes of that. There's a monster sex scene, and as this is going on, Dwayne has the whole movie has kind of been falling in love with Susan. He sees her as the only other kind of normal person in this household besides Granny Ruth, and he's attracted to her, and so he's trying to hit on her, and he tells her that he loves her, and that they should just leave and run away. And she even tells him, she's like, we're just like them. We can't run away. We can't. Well, this is where we belong. And he starts trying to have sex with her, and he lays on top of her, and she tells him, she's like, Dwayne, I've been with another man, I'm pregnant. I've been pregnant for the past 6 years. And he's like, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? And Susan opens up her dress or her shirt or whatever it is that she's wearing, and this little hand puppet monster comes out of her fucking stomach and is like growling and like blah, 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 like, and it's so uncomfortable and creepy. And she's just like, yeah, he just comes up for air sometimes. Don't be scared of him. He's just not ready to come out yet. And it's just, again, just, I probably would have reacted the same way Dwayne does, because Dwayne just loses his fucking mind. Like, he just loses it. And he's like, she said she was a freak. I'm a freak. We're freaks. Oh my God. And he starts like getting up and trying to run and leave the room, and Susan's trying to calm him down, and she's like, Dwayne, it's okay, don't be afraid, calm down. And they end up like kind of like in a little struggle, and Dwayne accidentally pushes her out the window, and Susan falls out the window and dies. She lands on the picnic table, and all of the mutants and Granny Ruth are just shocked, and they're just distraught. One of them is even screaming, "No!" It's a very dramatic scene, and they all, Granny Ruth's like, find Dwayne, and they all the mutants run into the house to find Dwayne, who has gone in there after Belial has finished having sex with Eve, and he grabs him. And he's kind of lost it, much like the end of the first movie. He's just kind of snapped, and he tells Belial, he's like, you can't be in love unless I'm in love. We can't, you can't be happy unless I'm happy. So what he does is he takes Belial and sews Belial back onto his side, to bring them back together. And that's when Granny Ruth comes in. It's like, oh no, Dwayne, and he's just losing it, and he's just laughing, and Belial's sitting there on the side of him, and they're both covered in blood, and Dwayne is just laughing, and that is when we fade to black, and we roll credits, and we get the really cool kind of theme song to this movie. This movie also has really good music, if I didn't mention that already, but yeah, that is Basket Case 2 from 1990. Like I said, this movie is absolutely wacky and crazy, insane, but it is so much fun. If you've seen the first one, but you haven't seen, 2 or 3, I'm telling you, you're not prepared for this. It goes in completely, takes a complete 180 degree turn. It is not something that you're going to expect, but it's good. It's a really fun movie. Has excellent creature effects. It's not nearly as gory or violent as the first movie, as I said, but it gives you enough to kind of work with, and it's one of those movies that really keeps your attention. Like, I mean, the whole time I'm watching it, I can't look away. Like, I'm just kind of enthralled and stuck on this movie and paying close attention to what's going on, because it's shot very well. The music is really good. Like I said, all of the effects are just, everything is working just fine. They really flexed that $2.5 million budget, again, compared to the first film's budget. So this is an excellent sequel. I highly recommend this movie. I think, again, everyone should see this at least once. I know this movie came out in 1990, but it has a very late 80s feel still to me. Like, it feels more like 88, somewhere around in there. It's kind of that bleed over from the 80s into the 90s, in those early years. And like I said, it kind of has that full moon, that was just what I thought. It had a full moon kind of vibe to it. I don't know. That was just kind of the takeaway I got from it. So, there is one more film after this, Basket Case 3, The Progeny. I look forward to talking about that one as well. Like I said, I don't remember as much about that one. I'm pretty sure it's just as crazy as this one, if not a little bit crazier. I just don't really remember much about what's going on, and I don't want to spoil anything just quite yet, but I will talk about that one pretty soon. I'd like to get all 3 of these out of the way. So anyway, I hope everyone enjoyed this review. Stay tuned for the next episode. As always, have a great night, and goodbye.